The Rise is a mixed-use urban infill residential over retail building along Cambie Street, a major road headed into downtown Vancouver. The Rise takes up an entire city block, 2.3 acres that used to be a car dealership. International developer Grosvenor bought the site in 2001 and proposed a high-density stacked retail plan for the site with 3 levels of large format and small retail stores with restaurants and entertainment on the top level.
The existing zoning was what the city calls a C3 zone, which allows you to build a building that has an area 3 times the size of the site. Where the challenge comes in is that what the city allows, they allow you to build 2 times the site as a matter of right, but to go from a 2 FAR or FSR to a 3, that extra density, you have to earn it.
In order to attain the density bonus, the city asked Grosvenor to consider a residential component.
They were encouraging us to increase the density, in fact, from what we had originally proposed, put more square footage on the site and do the residential density instead of these restaurant uses, which we saw some risk in as well. And so that actually solved a problem of ours, which was the viability of these 3rd floor retail tenants by converting it to residential.
The key thing for the project was to create a good urban environment and not the kind of suburban power center in which you normally see large format used.
In addition to the requirements necessary to increase density, the city also demanded that all freight deliveries occur on site.
There was no ability for these large 65 or 70-foot service trucks, the ones coming to the site with the merchandise, there was no ability for them to make any maneuvers, any turning movements on city roads. They had to simply drive to the property, drive into the property, maneuver there, unload their goods, and drive out.
So all the parking is below ground. The loading bay is in a 1-acre internal space that allows you to 3-point turn semis before taking them back out onto the street.
What makes the Rise unique is we have a full city block. There are no encumbrances, no laneways. We are able to develop the whole block.
The Canadian grocery chain Save On Foods quickly agreed to lease space on the undeveloped site. Home Depot and Winners HomeSense followed.
The other bonus in this particular site is the grade change on Cambie Street. It allows us to have 2 large format retailers, both essentially at grade.
From 8th Street to 7th Street, there's a difference in elevation of almost 20 feet. And on the face of that might look like a challenge, but in fact it was a great positive, because what it allowed us to do was to essentially stack the first 2 retail tenants on top of each other, but the one that was on top of Save On Foods still has its own grade level entry off 8th Street.
Wherever possible, the large format stores are wrapped by smaller stores.
The retailers along the street, it calms the environment, it makes it friendly. It's not a harsh, big box development. It doesn't feel that way. When people first look at the Save On Foods, they saw the entry portal and they could not believe when they walked in the store how big the store was, because it just didn't feel like that from the outside.
There are 92 rental live-work units in an open-air townhouse configuration with units surrounding a courtyard that serves as a green roof.
Whatever we did up here had to be very special. It had to have its own identity, it had to have street presence, it had to feel like something special.
We have the feeling of a townhome, that type of living experience. You have a small private terrace or yard, yet you're 70 feet in the air with a view.
It really does have presence up here. It's this kind of separate ground plane that you create up here. You kind of float above the city. You look up and down on Cambie, and it's beautiful. And if you get far enough on Cambie, you can actually look right across this roof. You're kind of looking down the street and you see these trees and these houses kind of floating up in the sky with the city behind them. It's a magic place.
Much of the value and revenue for the Rise was projected to come from the 3 large retail tenants. The residential component now accounts for 30% of the revenue generated by the site. While the Rise was designed with large format retailers in mind, Nigel Baldwin wanted to make sure it was flexible.
Big box retail may not exist more than 10 years into the future. What other uses? How could it be designed so that it could be broken up more, be changed into office uses or other kinds of uses? So By carefully designing the shear structures of the project and by making as many of the outside walls transparent as possible and having a structure that allowed for escalators to be cut into the floor plates or even a large hole to be cut in the middle of the building, I hope we've achieved that.
The rise proves that there is a market for large format retailers in dense urban settings. The key was bringing them into the space. The project's success was due to the ability of the development to give the retailers what they needed early while meeting city requirements.
You could see people start to, the kind of the light bulb kind of switch. They went, oh, we can do this. We don't have to find sites that are either outside of Vancouver to attract Vancouverites to, or we don't have to go find a site that's kind of on the periphery of the city. We can do this in an urban area. We just have to rethink what we do.